So you don't know what.
Where do I expand this one?
Tomorrow morning. Yeah.
The square one.
No, we should move the program back.
And there's one person waiting to come.
That's right, here's the-
That's this, isn't it? Yeah.
Good.
And then you probably. And then we'll just have to hit that when we get it started. Can you do that for me? Thanks.
This is worse than you, I mean, great.
They have to start recording back just very blatant.
All worked out. There you go.
How many been going?
And then there's this information about us. It's
Not about the
project.
okay.
It's just about our.
Yeah.
Did you get it started?
Yep.
Did you get Kyle?
Yeah, and you already hit start.
What?
Oh,
Thanks.
drop down participants then, because participants are done.
Oh, I think maybe if you just click on them.
And each participant.
Yeah, he's already, we just need to make sure is the meeting already started?
We don't have this, but I know this. Oh.
As soon as we get our recording started, we will begin the meeting.
Oh, it's saying stop video over one more, so we must have started it.
Okay, very good.
Or when you can.
Well, we're calling the meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. And I'll begin with the roll. Commissioner Wendy Phillips, I am here. Commissioner Kathy Brandt Rucker is absent. Commissioner Colleen Fried.
Here.
Commissioner Jim Richards.
Here.
Commissioner Jim Phillips.
Here.
Commissioner Scott Sorensen.
Here.
Commissioner Paul Pendergrass.
Here.
And I don't see anybody in the,
We got one person online.
no, and Joe Palin or, Phil Carlson. They don't. Okay, we are gonna move on to the third order of business, which is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion about the agenda tonight? Hearing none, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The agenda is approved. Moving on. We have approval of minutes on the agenda tonight. However, my vice chair was going to be sending minutes to me and she has had a family emergency. And so I am going to entertain a motion to dispense with the reading of minutes until the December meeting. So may I have a motion regarding that?
Make a motion that we table the approval of the minutes until the December meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
And is there any discussion regarding this? Then hearing none, I will move to the vote. All those in favor of dispensing with the minutes until the December meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. And we are going to move those minutes to the December meeting as that motion has passed. So moving into new business, we have the Hamilton Real Estate Group for the Victor Scott Trust that will be doing a presentation for us this evening. So if you would, please, you have the floor.
Come on, I need all the support I can get.
It's a team
You can
effort,
pull
right?
some chairs up there if you want to and get comfortable if you need. to.
You just got a new hip, so you might need it.
There you go.
Well, thank you for allowing us to come and speak to you this evening. I'm Jamie Shanley and I'm the president of Hamilton Real Estate. I've been with the company for 34 years, December 1st, so a long time person in this business. And I was lucky enough to also have lived in Orinoco for about 20 of those years. So it's been a few years now, but it's exciting to be back in town and looking to help with, see if we can further Orinoco's growth. That's an exciting thought process. So Hamilton Real Estate is headquartered in Rochester. We've done kind of everything in the real estate industry, except for probably much in residential sales. So we've done a lot of residential development in the past. We've done industrial development, commercial development. In recent years, we've done a number of apartment projects in towns in the region. We've done apartment projects in Byron, Dodge Center, Casson, Faribault, Flora, and Owatonna. And we've done a number of them in Rochester, but we haven't developed in Rochester for a few years. We've found a niche that's worked for us in some of the smaller communities that haven't had apartment projects developed for a number of years and have been looking for them, have been excited to have us come and work with them and participated to help make those projects happen. We also developed in Owatonna, opening last year, a Marriott Courtyard. So we've done a little bit of that. I currently do a lot of commercial leasing. So because we're a boutique kind of commercial real estate company, we kind of adapt our business to what the demand is. And we think that there's an opportunity here in Orinoco now with your soon to be activated new sewer septic system, and certainly has impeded growth in the past. We've been active in Orinoco in the past though, because we helped People's Cooperative Power identify the site that they bought on the west side of the highway that they built their headquarters and to develop the rest of that land there. Might have developed a little bit differently if there had been sewer in place at that point in time, because some of the opportunities that we had then couldn't be accommodated on the well and septic system there. But we have identified a piece of land that we think would make sense for us to consider developing, but we're here tonight to ask for your cooperation. Because part of it is that you're in a growth mode, that we need some assurances that you'll be able to be there to help us proceed with this development in a timeline that makes sense for us. And some of the things that need to happen are, not only do we have to, and we've contracted to buy this piece of land, we have had Bill Toynton help us, who has worked in the community for a long time and understands some of the needs, come up with a design proposal for a variety of different housing, primarily housing things that would go on that piece of land. And it's, but some of those things are not currently accommodated by your zoning code. And we know that you're embarking on a process to amend that code to hopefully reflect your future growth. But we want some assurance that you can help us expedite the things that we need done in order to enable this project to move forward. Hamilton Real Estate would be excited to be here, and we opened this year 3 apartment projects, so we're we're currently actively doing a lot of development, and each year we're looking for projects. So this is one of a number of developments that we hope to initiate in 2024. The development's a little more challenging right now than it's been for us the last few years, as many things are. And the primary reason for that is the interest rate climate. It makes a huge impact on, you know, the whole stack of costs that come along with development and being able to come up with a reasonable return for the people who would invest in these developments. That's kind of my role right now. I'm going to ask my partner, I think Ryan Nolander here is going to talk to you more specifically for a few minutes about the development that we're talking about putting in front of you. And
Thanks, Jamie. Ryan Delator, I'm a partner with Hamilton Real Estate. As Jamie said, we're excited to be here tonight and to talk to you about this potential project. The big thing, I think in your package, you probably had a little agenda from us with some items on it, and then a plan that we have laid out with Bill Poyton's help that shows the project. There's R1, traditional single family. There is some, what I call R2, project that shows some things that are like quads. And then there is also a multifamily apartment that's, just projected down there by the lumberyard that we currently have it laid out. We're here tonight, like Jamie said, to talk to you about the project, but more importantly, that timeline is going to be important because currently your R1 has the minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet. I know that you guys have been working with Stantec on potential recommendations for what that would look like. Also, the R2, you only have that go up to 3 units. So if you want to build a 4-plex or a 5-plex, 6-plex, you can't do that right now with the R2. And there is currently no zoning that allows for a multifamily that's, 50, 60, 70 units, whatever the size might be. Those type of things for us, we want to kind of understand what your timeline might be looking at those changes, how long it might take to get through some of those things. Overall, time is going to be important to us. We're coming up on our due diligence here shortly where we're going to have to make a decision on purchase or no purchase. And we're just trying to understand what that timeline looks like. If you've got questions based off of this plan that was in your packet, I believe, feel free to ask myself, Jamie, Ari. We're open to answer any questions you have. More important tonight, I think, for us is just to try to get a comfortableness with the community and with you guys as far as the timeline goes for some of the changes we're looking at. Anything to add, Ari?
You guys have done it well. That's why they're the brains in the operation. I think it's just Ryan and I have had the chance to work in Roanoke over the last couple of years.
Yep.
We worked with Renee at the city and the mayor in our informal conversations with people. I think we see the need, and we've tried to keep everyone's comments, which again have been informal, whether it's from the mayor, the city, Renee, and other neighbors, to make our plan kind of fit in with the neighborhood.
Yep.
And I think that's our ultimate goal, to be a part of the city and help the city grow. But as Ryan said, we have to move fast, and we'd like to move fast and get things done, and we can't wait to, with your assistance, help us get something going.
Does anybody have questions for?
What's your current timeline that you're looking at on starting this project, and can you get a little bit more into detail off of that, or?
Well, so perfect world timeline would be to try to start, early next spring, but you've got zoning things that are going to take time to get through. So we'd love to get going on moving dirt. If we were to move forward and purchase this, we'd be doing our work over the winter to rezone and plat and work with you guys in the city council. We'd love to start then, but we know the timeline with that rezoning stuff's going to be what we have to understand. So.
I think, more succinctly, and from our understanding in conversations that we've had today with your city engineer and the mayor, and we've had several different conversations. I know that you're embarking, and I think you're going to consider even later in this meeting, an RFP that you've put out to ask for companies to work with you to update your overall zoning code. And I don't know if this is right, but in conversation, we've heard that may be a project that you've envisioned might take like a 12-month timeline. to go through all the processes and get to a place where you believe that everything is agreeable. And that's where we kind of run into a stumbling block, because for us to purchase this and hold land today until you got through that process kind of makes things untenable for us. So I think most simply put, we're asking if you can envision a way to work with us to accomplish the things that would eventually be a part of that zoning code that we need to have happen in front of the adoption of a fully fleshed out zoning code. And those primarily are gonna be lot sizes within the single family district, the ability for the R2 kind of, like, as we understand them, to be enlarged beyond a 3-unit project, because we're talking about some single families, some fourplexes, some townhomes, and then we're talking about a site that would accommodate an apartment project, and you don't have anything in your code that allows for that. Certainly understandably, because you didn't have a sewer system that would let that density happen in the past. But that's what we're trying to figure out, if there's a way that we can work with you to have pieces of that code move forward more quickly.
Well, I'm kind of one of the newer ones to the board here, so, but my question is, maybe you can answer me. Is this already annexed in the city? I don't think it is, is it?
It's already in the city.
Okay, I didn't, okay, I wasn't certain. I knew that, when they put Peter Woodley, they had a 300-foot long strip that belonged to the annexed in right in front of the property north of the Peter Woodley.
On your development part, are you gonna stage that for what you would be building in here? Give me some idea of what your thought process is as you're looking with that.
I mean, we have conceptualized, and maybe if you look at we didn't show you that because, again, we're at a conceptual standpoint, but that we would take the eastern portion of that total property and develop coming off Second in through the apartment project and through, so we'd have some pieces of all the product we want to put in there. We'd have some single family lots, we'd have some of the townhome lots, and we'd have some of the fourplex lots available in a phase 1.
Yeah.
Which, is prudent for a developer to do, because they don't have to bear all the cost, and they could kind of test the market and make sure the product that they're thinking of putting out there finds acceptance in the market. So, yeah, so it'd be
If
the
you're looking
western
at-
portion of.
If you're looking at the map where Timberline Drive southeast on the north, that extension down, everything kind of west of that. And then the townhomes along there would be the first phase if we phase it.
If you phase it.
Yep.
Or you might look at just doing the whole thing without doing a phase and jumping in off of doing it.
Yep.
Do you have any drawings or any idea what this is gonna look like, what you're planning, or do you have something that's around that we could kind of go visually see what you guys are planning for?
Are you
for
talking
that?
about for the aesthetics of the
Yeah,
buildings?
Yeah, because I think that's one of the things that we're really looking at also. Is to make sure everything will blend in and be done correctly.
Well, I think in that bound packet that you've got some photos of recently done apartment projects. So some of those would be very similar to what we'd be looking to put here.
Yeah. The first couple of pages after the pictures are just the residential, some ideas of residential subdivisions that you've done in the past. But the ones towards the back show you the apartment building and aesthetics that we do there. The reality with this project, most of those lots we would be selling to local contractors to actually build those. We wouldn't be building them ourselves. We would be just developing the land, getting it planted properly, going through these processes, and then they would be able to build on there.
And potentially the duplex townhome projects we've had conversation with several regional developers about them buying that in stages. Because those are gonna make sense to, they'll probably have to be part of a planned unit development, so likely we will have further conversations if we, for instance, stage it, that they take down those townhome lots that are a part of stage one. And it seems to be, it's probably a number of lots that would make sense for them to dive into and complete within a calendar year building process and develop and move through there. And, you know, similarly, that's what we think with the single family units too. You might notice that to the far east of the development, where it butts up with the existing homes in Cedar Woodlands, we've tried to pay attention to the fact that all of those homeowners bought large lots and built their homes. Really nice homes to accommodate that. So we've tried to pay attention there and leave those large lots abutting there. We've also left an area to the northeast corner that abuts some of those homes that would be detention ponds, and there's a steep slope area there with trees there that we also would intend to leave as is to give a buffer to those home sites. We've listened to the city and their comments about their hope to extend the trail that is kind of on the north side of this existing lot and bringing it down through our development out onto the road so people can get all the way to Second Street.
This, the trails that dotted line that comes kind of right through the middle on the north property line. You'll also see on here, as Jamie mentioned, we've got the lots along the existing that we wanted to make sure that we're respectful to those neighbors and that there are large lots that are there that could match up. But when you look at some of the dimensions, they're really tiny unless you zoomed in on it. You'll see we're not asking to build really tiny, small lots. We're not looking to build tiny homes. They're 75, 80-foot wide lots, 120, 130 foot deep. You know, they're still 9, 10, 11,000 square feet. 75-foot lot will get you a 3-car garage. I mean, we're still looking to have those be lots that are going to be very accommodating to what's already around there. If that's a concern, but that's kind of our idea right now, is to create a little more density in the middle of the project. Some townhomes over there towards the middle of it. More commercial stuff down towards the lumberyard, which is obviously what your future land use plan has down on the.
No, I mentioned that we've in the last few years done a number of apartment projects in Rochester and area towns. We also have an affiliated management company that manages all of those. So, you know, our concern would be to, at least at this point, in all of those that we've developed in the regional areas, have investors who invest in them for a long-term hold, and we manage them. So I think you would find that, you know, certainly we can have you look as time goes by at some of the other projects we've done and see how they've been maintained, but it isn't something that the apartment is something that we would likely hold and not just flip it to somebody else.
So you intend on managing it through another company of yours?
Management
Through
company.
another affiliate?
So, you know, there'll be a development entity that would develop all of the lots there and probably another development entity that would build that apartment project. But with our, we've kind of come up with a number of investors who have followed us through a lot of our projects who are anxious to find out what the next projects are we're gonna do. And we've been able to provide a product that has been a good investment vehicle for them. And so it isn't like we're just going to visualize that to build it and put it out on the market. We think we'd be a management team who'd be in place in that project and would help you be able to allay fears about, you know, what kind of tenants are you gonna have there. We're very well known. We could give you a lot of references about what we do in that function.
And in these other small towns like Dodge Center and Cass and similar, we've listened to the city and the neighbors and tried to build things that fit into the neighborhood. Obviously, it's new, it's modern, first new product in Dodge Center in 25, 30 years. So we tried to work with the city and get that done, and it's been well received. 56 units in Dodge Center filled up in 3.5 months, 4 months. So we keep our units affordable without having the affordable name. We try to build them right, build them quality, but they're not affordable housing, so to speak.
And again, though, that's just a
Exactly,
small
yeah,
piece
yeah.
of the overall, I mean,
Of
obviously,
course.
there's 43 acres here and there's multiple different types of housing
Yeah.
we're talking about,
What I'm
but
saying is, I think we want to work with the community to give what fits here. We're not changing the unique character of Orinoco, why we think Orinoco has so much appeal to people to get here finally with the sewer and everything like that.
Would you have an association that's part of this, that would be watching everything up there in that area, or?
I mean,
the twin homes would probably have one.
the way we've conceptualized it, if we're able to work with the developers that we've talked about with the twins homes, and by the nature of twin homes, they typically do need to have an association of some kind because they've got shared party walls and some other components that an association needs to fund repair, replacement over time. We haven't honestly fully fleshed out the thought. We show on there some quad homes on the north side. And part of that concept was we might very well build those and keep those as rental units, or we might sell them to investors. What we'd like to have is enough management numbers to be able to have an on-site person there. So that's part of the thought, if we could have a couple of different products here. And the reason I only picked out the apartments was just knowing the character of your community, that you'd be concerned about what the ongoing character would be of the tenants in a product like that.
So on the average, how long do you guys typically own it before you sell it?
Well, right now, all of the product that we've built 4 apartment projects in Owatonna, and we still own and manage all of
Yeah.
those. We have, honestly, we've sold some of the product that just last year that we built 12 to 15 years ago in Rochester.
But I don't think, we're more of a buy and hold. We like to hold on to the product. We aren't there to try to flip it, so.
And obviously, as Jamie said, please come and look at some of the apartments. We are proud of them. They're nice, they're good. We run them well. We have a great management staff and everyone's been happy, knock on wood. They're doing well in all the communities and I think everyone's happy. And it's spurred on further good developers too.
But, looking at what's being marketed in Orinoco currently, there isn't much for any kind of lot available. And in talking to the realtors that work in Rochester and this area, there's a lot of demand. We've talked to a number of them about the lot sizes and what they visualize demand to be in Orinoco, and had gotten a lot of positive reaction about, they believe that there is a pent up demand that will allow your growth as you can accommodate it.
And obviously, a product like this is, it's a risk for us because you never know how long the lot absorption is gonna be. It could be quickly, people could want to buy them in the next 2 years. It could be a 5, 6, 7 year deal. And so that's something that we're always weighing when we're doing these projects. And this one, that's why we're asking tonight about the timelines and stuff. We just want to make sure there's cooperation and that you guys are interested in a project like this and you see value in what we're providing.
I mean, it shows a little bit in the packet we gave you, but my partner Mac and I bought, I'm even remembering now, 350 acres on the northwest side of Rochester when West Circle Drive first came in there. And some of it fronted on West Circle Drive, which we developed into commercial service, restaurants, office buildings. That's where our offices are currently. We partnered with some other realtors and developed the lots all behind there. They're called Badger Hills and Badger Development, Badger Ridge. In that time frame, pre-2008, we developed and sold 90 to 100 lots a year So we've done scale development.
Yep.
But you have to look at the real demand for those.
So if I'm understanding correctly, the broken line is what surrounds the 43 acres that are in question, correct?
Yep.
And so what we've got is we've got existing homes outside of that area. And you've got your larger lots that kind of border your project with the exception of these fourplexes here, correct?
And the twin homes in the middle that are.
I see those, they're down here, right? And this is the apartment building.
Yep.
I have some residents here and I want to show them, because if they have questions, I'd like them to be able to ask also. All right. So
How about
what we're talking about, this is the area.
I got a bigger one over here, Paul, if
This
you wanna
is
look
the
at a bigger
area
one.
that they are talking about purchasing. This is the area that is already. owned by-
bigger than-
Have a bigger one than that?
These are their larger single family units that you've got kind of bordering the north and the east side. You've got all of your duplexes in here. You've got your fourplexes in here, and here.
Pretty much the twin homes that you talk about putting on there, that's got all the slab on grade.
Likely.
Likely.
And I, in thinking about what I know about Orinoco, we thought there would be some receptivity from people who maybe are at that point in life where they're downsizing. In maybe off of an area farm or something, but want to stay in the area.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think there's much product like that around here.
Did everybody get a picture of this?
I think looking at like the duplexes and that, our townhomes, however you wanna look at that. Looking and just seeing, I think that that's gonna open a lot for affordability for people to be able to come in. You know, and that's where it's at. Where do you find that affordability factor that there is and still be able to have the community? I like that concept of what there is off of it. Yeah, my concern, and I come from, I lived out in Southern California for 45 years, is just want to maintain that we get the right type of families that there are that are associated with that, if I can say it politely off of that. You know, and that's where the association would make a difference on watching that they would have their hands in and being, making sure everything is run correctly.
Well, I mean, for the single family lots, in all honesty, there probably isn't need for an association because where Cedar Woodlands, for example, maintained an association because of a shared septic system. You know, we're envisioning all of these homes now with your sewer system being able to be
Single served. Yeah.
standalone, and not have to cooperate with their neighbors.
We hope they cooperate.
No, I don't mean it that way. We'd like to be a nice neighborhood feel, but not having to share costs.
Well, I mean, this would be something that people would see when they first come into town, okay, because you're all gonna go down Minnesota Avenue to whatever there is here downtown as it continues to grow. So I mean, aesthetically, you want something to have good eye appeal of what there is making it welcome and open and that type of a thing too, for what we want to see with.
With the new restaurant coming in, change the neighborhood a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I think associations.
That's where I look at the association being good, just to
Yeah, for like-
maintain things that are going on. I mean, most of the houses, a lot of them in town are part of association, even though. They'll watch, they'll look just to make sure everything is maintained the way it should be maintained. So, that's just my thoughts on it.
The only thing I'll say that I pause a little bit with is just the timing. 'Cause I feel we're gonna be very rushed to do what we have to do with our zoning code and everything that we would have to change. And we're reviewing the RFPs tonight and coming back with a recommendation for the council. That's my only worry, is that we're gonna be rushed to do something in haste. not to say it can't happen, I'm not saying that at all. I just want to make sure what we do it right.
Well,
And-
and on top of that, we have other top priorities with zoning code issues that we've had a few requests to prioritize this group of things. They aren't necessarily connected with each other. And if you're rewriting code and you're pulling bits and pieces out from different places, then having the entire city code have the continuity that we are looking for at this point in time for the growth of the city. We just don't want to find ourselves in a position where we've painted ourselves into a corner and all of a sudden we've got a brand new city code that we've spent a lot of time and frankly, a lot of money on. And it's still kind of a hodgepodge of things that have been stuck together because we've had special requests that come in. And so the timing thing is the sticking point that I see with this, most definitely.
Well, and it's the sticking point for us because we've got some other members of our development team who recognize where you are in your growth and some changes within your community. And we've got other projects in front of us where the community has already committed.
Yeah, and they're ready to go, right?
Yep.
I totally understand.
And, you know, I don't know how how your RFP is written, but the continuity seems like the best way, if you wanted to approach it, would be whoever you awarded that to add to their bucket of duties to say, we know this is outside of the pale, but we want you to consider this request and be able to put it forward in a way that you could incorporate it to an overall product at the end of time.
Wendy, can I say something?
Certainly.
Something that both Hamilton and planning and zoning and city council can consider is, one of the things that you're concerned about is timing.
Mhm.
That property is currently zoned R1 and R2, as you know.
I think it's all R1, isn't it?
R1 up on the top, R2 on the bottom, because there's already existing business there and there has to be a buffer between that zone. So that in the future land use plan, if you looked, it's B1, then R2, then R1. That's the standard.
The future land use plan doesn't match up with the actual zoning.
That's a different thing. But that's what the vision of all that property is, and that property is R1 up all on top, R2 here. If I look at your drawing, all your R1s are technically, that's totally fine. Your duplexes that are in the middle are a little probably higher than the current delineation of where the R2 is. I think it's closer. The only thing that's really completely out is your 73 unit. That's not even in the plan as allowable. But if you actually do look at our 151.4 use plan, in there, we do in R2 allow 3 to 4 unit multi-dwelling family houses. That is permitted. 5 to 12 units are conditional use. The one option that Hamilton has is you can come forward with a conditional use permit for that property without having the major revisions done. But that again still has to have a vote and goes for a public hearing and council and can be shot down. So there's no guarantees there. I'm just showing you all the options because I sat in that chair for long enough and I know our codes.
Well, and then with the R1 would still need to be changed though too, correct? Because it's
Well,
minimums of 20,000.
Yeah, I don't have the actual plan in front of me, but that's something that you'd want to look at and overlay. Where that R1 is because all of that was supposed to stay R1 and there's set size limits and stuff, right? And that basically half acre lot is what it was zoned for, right? I don't have dimensions and looking at all your details here. But that's what it was really planned. So if you're looking to change that, that's again, another one of those conditional use permit things that, so there are ways before this whole code is done that you can go forward with. But I would also tell you to look very closely at that future land use plan. The reason I tell you that is because the city voted on that as the vision of what they wanted for that property, right? And so the homeowners who built homes, nice homes, which are all sitting around here behind me in your audience, are also very conscious of what that property and land use should be. And so I'm very happy to see that along the lines that you are sticking to the R1. I also know the need of higher density homes. Phil Carlson will tell you from the report that we did from the planning for future land use plan, one of the things that came out of that was a higher density of homes is often needed and looked for, and there's not enough of that housing. I would argue though, the 73 might be on the extreme size of what Orinoco is traditionally looking for. We do consider ourselves a small town community. That's on the front homepage of our website. So that would probably be, I'm not saying that it will not pass. I'm just telling you, it may not be in alignment with the vision of the city. That might be an extreme number, right? But all of your quads and your duplexes, that's typical R2 stuff. And that would be consistent with the code. And like I said, for a home and even larger, if you look in our code, 5 to 12 could be conditional use. You can go larger still, higher density, but it'd be conditional use permit under a code. So what I'm telling you is I would look closely at that. There are ways and mechanisms in the current code to go outside of that. So if you want to move faster, you can go forward with those conditional use application and permit, and that comes before a public hearing, before planning and zoning, and then goes to council for recommendation or final approval. So there are options. Obviously, I also encourage you to continue to meet with the homeowners associations around there. Because obviously, as key residents who live in there, we want to make sure that our home values, as well as the community that feel around there, is consistent with that future land use plan. So I would really tell you to focus on that. And you also have Phil Carlson, who did a lot of that work on that future land use plan, and can tell you the feedback from the community, because that went to full public hearing and approval.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm an old.
I mean,
No,
it-
Love having the chair of many years around. It's very, very useful.
yeah, we all kind of
Definitely.
try to work together on everything that's going on, you know, I don't know, if you ask me, I mean, are we interested in this type of a situation? I think the answer would be, to me, is yes. You know, for what's going on, I think you're looking at things the right way on what's going on and the needs that could be here in the city. As far as looking at what we are for lot sizes and that, I mean, it's at the top of our list of things that we're looking at right away, just because we understand how critical that is and the restriction that was there because of what you had to have with the septic systems prior. There's been some changes that were made over in Riverbend and those areas that have already happened in the city that worked out well. You know, so again, it's one of those things. So that's just, you know, my thoughts.
Well, and for me, I see some definite potential in all this, but for me, the bottom line has to come back to whether or not the homeowners that are surrounding this area are going to be happy with the development of the city as well. And so that's going to be a key issue for me as I'm considering this.
Well, we, as homeowners, we would do the same thing as you guys. We want the same thing. And we took that into account, I think, a little bit, not to mention we're hoping this will help spur other development for Orinoco too, which we know everyone's, I mean, I've talked to Tom many times who's building a restaurant. Oh, I wanted a grocery store. I want this and this. I mean, that's what we're hoping this will help spur that too. But obviously we do need a few more people to get some of those services that I'm sure we all want in a neighborhood like this.
One of the things that I appreciate is how thoughtful the layout of your development was, where you're creating a single, you know, family home buffer around that between the larger properties that people purchase for the, you know, the privacy, the scenic beauty, whatever reasons they built where they built. And you have the more dense units contained kind of in the center of the project. I'm wondering how an apartment complex would go out here. I don't know about that.
No, but
We've had discussion.
it likely is one of those things that if you don't think that there's gonna be support for that to move forward would make us back away from doing what we're gonna do.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it.
I will say we have purposely have in the future land use plan R3s, or where we actually had wanted some of those larger greater than 20 type housing units. And that plan, obviously it's land that's not annexed into the city yet. But there was locations for that in that plan. So that's again, that's why I refer to that, because I know some of those higher density places, Phil had purposely brought up and it came up as a need, but then they were strategically placed in the community.
Well, and we talk about, all of us talk about affordable housing, and it's something that is hard to achieve anywhere in the country. You know, Orinoco is not alone, any of the other communities there. But we're in a place in time where not everyone is going to desire or be able to afford a single family home.
I look
So,
at it right now as there's no such thing.
but
Well, and I look at Rochester, which is just a stone's throw from here. And they've got apartment buildings popping up all over that city, including as far up as 65th Street. And so I look at that and I think that need is met just a few miles from here.
well, we would have thought that at the, back when COVID started in 2019, and there had been a lot of those projects already developed. And we're like, the economy's turning down, all of these things, we're gonna start going back and seeing a lot more vacancies. It never happened. And all of the projects that have been developed to date have filled up very rapidly. It's not satisfied yet in our minds.
Well, you guys might know a little bit more about the demand that there is in Rochester and this part of the town, the northwest part of Rochester itself. You know, one of the advantages that there is too with Orinoco is that we've got some great school systems that there are in Pine Island. And it was the same thing in Byron of what you have, that brings people this direction just to turn around and have good schools that there are to attend to, so. And the small town atmosphere, I mean, these are all good discussions to have.
I mean, one of the other communities that we're talking with, and they've been very receptive, is the community of Clear Lake, Iowa, that we're thinking we're gonna put a project in there. Not a huge community, kind of a unique community because it has some of the lake and some big homes around there. But they have been having a terrible time hiring teachers. Because there's no place for those professionals to be housed. There aren't single family homes that are affordable to them. And they're begging for the right kind of apartment project. So, I think part of it is it the right kind of apartments? There can be apartments built that you don't want to have be part of your community.
That's a lake community that.
I know, but the same thing with the Dodge Center and Casson and
not-
some of these other small communities that they've decided that there's a facet who have less gray hair than I have that don't, my generation was, we want to own our own home. There are a lot of people now who that's not their goal. They don't want
No, I
to spend
think-
that much time.
Yeah, they have a lot
I
of
think
states
it's-
right on the north side of 122 that people are willing, or north side of 18 that really people are willing to build on.
We were surprised in Dodge Center how many seniors wanted to move into an apartment. They sold their 2-story homes. And they wanted nice, not handicapped rooms, but nice, simple living. In a good location, close to all the amenities in Dodge Center too. So it's not just workforce housing. It's not just, it was a great mix of a lot of different people. And we kind of see that happening here too, where there's people who need an easier way to live.
You really don't have anything that there is in Pine Island that's there, so you're looking at going to Zabroda and they put an apartment complex that was there, and I think that fit in quite well.
Yeah.
For the way that they put it, and then I think that's worked out well too.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm saying your side that there is behind it thinking that way.
I talked to some of the people who were sort of my son's generation, so 35, 40-year-old people who grew up here and, said, is there a demand in your age group, in your vision for nice apartment housing in Orinoco? And I got a pretty resounding yes.
I mean, the average age, I think here, if I'm not, is it 36, Ryland, or 38 for the average age?
36.
36,
Mhm.
you know, so, I mean, you're, you know, in that category too of what's going on, and I know discussions have been there too on looking at seniors and what do you do with seniors and that, so I mean, these are all realistic questions that there are that are coming up, so as we do the growth.
Did anybody that's here this evening have questions for the development team? No? Very good. Do any of the commissioners have any further questions? Well, thank you so much for coming in and presenting tonight.
I guess
Thank you.
you'd like to lead with the, you know, I know you're gonna consider your RFP later on tonight. I mean, helpful to us in our decision-making about whether to move forward. Are you willing to consider fast-tracking some of the changes that we need to move this development forward? And, you know, you're not in a position, you don't know enough to define that, but I guess just whether we can get some read from you, not tonight necessarily, but in the near future about whether you would consider, you know, we've had Bill Toynton do a development timeline for us, giving that time to conceptualize, write, and get approved the pieces of the code that you'd need to move this forward in, I believe, like a 90-day timeline before we could start any of the other things that we need to do to move this forward.
I think without the apartment house on there, I'd be all game for it. That's what turns me off, so let's be outright blunt about it.
So
Anyway, we'd like
As-
to ask you for some feedback that you don't need to provide us tonight.
no, I'm asking, what is the deadline for that feedback so that you would have plenty of time to make the decision that you would need to make?
I think that our currently defined due diligence on the purchase of this property expires December 14th, 15th,
Middle of the
something.
month. No, it's-
Yeah.
So we need to get back to you within the next 3 weeks,
And,
basically.
you know, really within a couple weeks would be,
Yep.
because we may have to go back and say, can you extend the time that we've got to close, but we don't want to leave the people that were
Yeah.
agreeing to purchase on anymore if we think that us moving forward is not reality.
So, what we're looking at on the calendar is December 1st is a Friday. Do you need to know before December 1st, or would that be a good deadline
So
for
that'll
you?
be fine because
Okay.
with
There's a holiday.
Thanksgiving and stuff there, it's gonna be really hard to try and get any consensus before then.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure I answered your questions.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming in this evening.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item B under new business. We have the Paulette's lot split application at 450 Second Avenue Northwest. And there was a request to set a public hearing. I received word from Phil this morning that the applications were complete by Mr. Paulette. And so is there a motion to set a public hearing for our December 14 meeting regarding the lot split application at 450 Second Avenue Northwest?
I'll make a motion to set a public hearing.
So there's motion. Is there a second?
I'll do a second.
It's been moved and seconded to set the public hearing for September 14. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll move to the vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. Public hearing for the Paulette's lot split application at 450 Second Avenue Northwest is set for December 14. Yes. I have a question on this. And, I can't see Phil. Oh, would you turn the TV for me, please? Thank you. Hi, Phil.
Evening.
Morning, I believe it was. And you said that the original application was submitted in August, and then it was withdrawn September 7th. And the current application was resubmitted on November 7. And so
Yes,
which gives the city council until January 7 to take final action on this, correct?
yes.
And then I had a question for you. After the change in staffing that we had a few weeks ago, I started getting copied into emails that had already been going on, and so I'm just asking for some clarification. This is an email from Joe Palin dated Thursday, August 24th of this year. And this is written to you. And in the third sentence of this email from Joe to you, and referring to this property at 450, where did it go? 452nd Avenue Northwest. This is what Joe writes to you. The sanitary sewer to serve the home was constructed last week. Prior to construction, we met with the property owner to review the location and their proposed sewer service to their existing home. At that time, the property owner noted that they were in the process of applying for a lot split. So we made the decision to add a sewer line and 4-inch diameter service pipe to the lot property line. So if I'm reading this correctly, it was decided to put in 2 sewer and water lines to the one property before a lot split had been approved. Is that correct?
Yes, that's how I read that.
Made that decision.
Well, it sounds like that was Joe on the spot, and those certainly the city wants to look forward to providing properties with the proper sewer. I mean, if and when lot sizes are changed and in the code, and we get many applications like this to split lots, we're going to have many dozens of new sewer lines put in. So it's it's not unusual. I guess this doesn't surprise me that they would decide to put in a second sewer, knowing that the property owner wanted to have a second lot there.
In the final sentence of this same paragraph, Joe writes, if when the lot is developed, the property owner will need to pay for both the water, the PIF, SAC, and LCC, and water connection charge. And so if that lot split were never to happen, then the city is paying for the installation of this second line?
I'm not sure how those charges get passed on or not. That's not something that I'm typically involved with, but certainly, the intent is that those would be reimbursed to the city for that.
But that's only if the lot split happens, right?
Right.
But who would pay for it if the lot split doesn't happen?
The city. The taxpayers.
I think somebody'd have an answer to that.
Are you aware of other lots where this has happened, Phil?
I'm not. Yeah, and I apologize. I'm not typically involved in the individual infrastructure decisions like that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, well, we have gone ahead and set the public hearing for the 14th. And we will move on to item C in new business, which is a discussion around a storage container, and I'm gonna just hammer Irv's last name. I apologize, Irv, if you're listening anywhere. It's Irv
Development.
Devlemek. Thank you. Now, I think, Jim, that you've had a conversation with Irv. Would you like to?
I
open up
thought I
this?
had a different,
I have 2 copies of this.
Yeah,
Would you
that-
like one of those, or do you have one?
no, I've got the one, but that isn't what he wants to do now. There was another drawing. I thought it was in my box, and that's what I had picked up. I had picked up the wrong one. Right now, he wants to turn around and put in like a garage, but I thought I had the drawing and that was in the
Is
office.
this what you're looking for?
No, that was for the container that he wanted to put on it, but he wanted to put like a garage, like a 2-stall garage that there is over there.
About a 30 by 40 shed up.
Or shed, whatever. It
I
might
haven't-
be, it looked like it had a roll door that there was, it's not this one. And I thought it was in my box, but
I figured if he wanted, that's what he wanted, he'd probably present
do
it
you have
to
it,
us.
Ryland, or you know where that went?
I'm sorry.
Do you know where that
Do you
went
have
to?
a copy of this diagram that he
Because
drew?
Renee had another one that he dropped off. I can see.
Also, there's an update to it.
Yeah.
Last time I heard he's gonna put a container near the door face the east. That's only drawing I see. I can burn it, paint it brown or green, so
It's about.
nobody even notice it in there. Put it inside that old foundation sit there.
Yeah.
So it looks like he's got
Something different now.
Or just a foundation.
Well, first he was talking about.
Okay, he's just wanting to fill the container or set a container. on top of it.
Okay.
It's gonna sit inside, it's not the actual, sits within the walls of the foundation
Oh, okay.
for storage, because he did, the barn that burned down. That's where he stored stuff, so now.
Is this the house that's right down the street?
Yeah,
That
this is,
barn burned?
yeah, by the bridge.
Yeah, kind of a couple doors away from the VFW.
Yes,
Got it.
south, yeah. So he's just asking about placing a container inside the walls of that building that was there, so. Not the one that was burned, this is another building. There's
Okay.
two buildings, one burned, one, the foundation is still standing, so he's just asking to put setting a container there for temporary storage.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's mysteriously disappeared, so I don't know where it went, but in a different drawing.
Okay, so, you asked for this to be put on the agenda.
Yeah, he had asked for it, and I thought he was gonna be here to kind of explain what was going on, and I thought that he had that other page to show. So right now, with what happened, his barn burned down, and so he needs to have some type of a storage that there is for his units that he's got. I guess he's got a tractor and some other stuff that he wanted to do, but there was an actual shed or bigger shed, almost like a garage that he wanted to put on that property. And I know he had filled out an application for a building permit, but I don't, it was in there before and it's gone now, so I don't know if it went to Stantec or where it went to, so I guess I can't, huh?
It's in your box.
It was in my box, it's gone now, so
So what,
there's nothing I can do with this without having that information to go forward, but he wants just to be able to put something up there because his barn burned down, so.
okay, so.
I-
I don't,
I'm under
Really?
the understanding from talking to him that he wants to put the container up there until he gets something built up there. To replace the Nessick barn. So whatever.
So your understanding is that he wants a temporary container.
That was my understanding. but-
Yeah, and
While
he
he's
did a
waiting
drawing
to
of
figure
that,
out
so,
building something.
yeah.
And so without him being here and without you having what it was that you thought that you had, is this even an actionable item tonight?
I say no.
I
because
would say no, because there's nothing on this that I read
That's-
that says it's temporary.
That's,
He hasn't filled out a request for.
Well, he did fill out one for a building permit, but I don't have that information that there is. So like I said, I had here the drawing and everything, but it's not there.
We have two issues, really. So,
Lack of information.
well,
Well,
if we had the information, to me, that's an issue that it disappeared.
yeah, I don't know where it
Find out
went.
why or where it went.
Yeah.
But number two is, on this, I see nothing that says temporary, and I would be very hesitant to, take any action on this with the lack of information, and
yeah, there's none.
because this to me says permanent, because there's nothing here that says temporary. And yeah, do we wanna be able to help him out?
I mean, I like to help him out, but until he does everything correctly,
it's gotta
there's
be
nothing
done
you can
by
do
the
with it,
book.
so. And if he's got a permit and it's going, over to Phil to take a look at, maybe
Right,
that's what he's doing too, maybe that's where it's at.
yeah, but we can't do anything.
Can't do anything with
We
it.
don't get information. Stuff's gotta come through here, right?
Okay.
Okay. And so we're gonna move into unfinished business, which is the RFP recommendation to city council. Ryland, with your permission, may I read the email that you sent me regarding this? I wanted to do this out of respect for you because it was a request that you made for consideration in this, so. I received this from Ryland today. And he says, Wendy, I just wanted to share a comment regarding the timing of the company selected. Both companies indicated a need to work with the city administrator, and I'm concerned that until we have a new city administrator in place, it will be more work for Renee, which she has a lot on her desk already. Maybe you have given this some thought, but if you haven't, the P and Z recommendation to council might be to consider waiting for the start of code development planning to wait until a new administrator is in place. Just wanted to share my concern regards Ryland. So, my initial response to that is that we are already several months behind in this process because we were told in January that we were going to be given an RFP and that it was going to be posted at that point in time. It got to be late summer when the vice chair, Kathy Brandt Rucker, and I finally took over that project to write the RFP and hand it back to the city administrator for the purpose of her just basically looking it over, putting whatever finishing touches on it and posting it. And so from my seat, I'm hesitant to postpone this project any further. That's me. Any other council members or commissioners rather that would like to make a statement regarding that?
I agree, I'd be hesitant to wait just because we are behind the eight ball, I think.
And I can see too with developments that are coming in, that the longer we wait, the more we're just delaying it to go down. And I think we need to move on the project to move it ahead. Because there is a demand that's out there to do it. So,
Build it, they will come.
Yeah.
We get to get something started code wise. We'll get an administrator. It'll work. Somewhere, somebody's gonna want a job.
Okay. Scott, did you have any?
Nothing to add, I guess.
Colleen?
It's gonna be up to council on whether they're able to move on our recommendations, so.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We are an advisory council in that regard, most definitely.
And my
So-
thought too is that it's a process
Mm-hmm.
to bring another company on. And it's not like it's gonna happen tomorrow. So I think there's gonna be some time lag there, I think. So I think hopefully will buy us some time.
Mhm.
But yeah, I agree, and I definitely appreciate Ryland's email.
Absolutely.
Just I too worry about,
It's absolutely a
on Renee.
consideration.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's definitely a consideration. But I agree, I think
Mhm.
Well, the timelines are all in place on how either one of the two companies we were looking at was gonna function moving forward.
Mhm.
It's kind of like things are still there. It's not going away. I think we just need to keep moving forward. Things are all in place along the way.
Well, we had 4 commissioners that were here for the interview of the initial 3 bids that were submitted. And out of those 3 bids, there were 2 firms that we were very interested in working with. And so we held a second set of interviews. And we are at the point that the companies that are in consideration now are WSB
This one?
and Stantec.
Mhm.
The company SRF, they were absolutely lovely. We just felt that these other 2 firms would better fit our needs. So with WSB and with Stantec being the firms that are being considered, is there anybody that would like to launch us into that conversation as to what you're thinking, which way you're leaning, the reasons? Don't all speak at once.
Well, based on the presentations, I, on the final presentations, I thought, WSB was they really were good on their presentation. I think Stantec definitely had a lot of information to give us as well, and it was more of an open forum, but I felt that the other company was maybe a little more prepared and presented and put a lot of thought into it. And not to degrade Stantec in any way. I like the idea of there being 2 different companies. I don't want to say a checks and balance, but in some respects, it is kind of a checks and balance. You get new eyes. That's my thought.
And I agree with what you're saying, Jim, off of that. WSB on the follow-up, actually took time to listen to our questions that we had and our concerns after they did their first presentation. And went and addressed each one of those by themselves. So I thought they really did a good job with the homework, finding out where we had our issues that they were behind it. Stantec has done a great job, for many other things that are going on. I just think, like you were saying, new eyes that there are sometimes is good, and having a check and balances that go along with it. I also like the fact that they rely heavily on visual parts of the code to make it easier for people to understand. That was a big part of theirs, where so many times you have everything in writing, but how do you visualize what that really is? So people can look at it, identify it, answer the question themselves before they come in and put in a permit and have questions on what goes on. But I like that concept.
The other thing is the price.
Yeah, well, we didn't get into the price.
Yeah.
The other thing too is not just taking what they had for presentation, which was, I thought, very, very good on what they did. Paul, you did some research on it, and Wendy, you did too, on calling the cities where they're at right now, getting and checking references to make sure that what they were saying is actually true. And Paul, maybe you can talk a little bit more about what you got back, and Wendy too, the references that you had, so.
Yeah, I called Montemita, or Scott Nelson for a while. About 8,100 people. They've had WSB there since a couple of years before he came to work there 20 years ago. He likes the idea that they got questions, if somebody can't answer it, engineers across the table, this person's over here. They got all of the staff that they need to kind of address any issues that are right there. I'm not saying Stantec don't have the staff either. I'm just saying that that's what, it's all well explained. I said the code is very understandable. They have a big DNR overlay district, being they're on the west or the east side of White Bear Lake. You know, they have I won't say they have a big industrial area, but if you go around the north side of the cities, you'll see the FedEx depot up there. That's in Montemita. That's all of the FedEx trucking company up there. They got a lot of different things going on, and they're tickled to have them.
I spoke with Dan O'Leary, who is the mayor of Sunfish Lake. And their story was really interesting. They had been working with a firm for 30 years that they terminated for incompetence. His words, not mine. And they started working with WSB, and this is many years ago. They were actually working with one city planner within that firm, and they were not happy with that person at all, and they fired them. They were thinking about changing city planners, and then Lori came on board as their city planner and the project manager. And he said that that her involvement has made a tremendous difference, that they're extremely pleased with them, and that they actually use both their city planner and their city engineer in the Sunfish Lake area. I spoke with Mike Anderson, who's the city administrator for Spring Park, and their city is just about the same size as our city. And he said that Lori is incredibly bright, incredibly responsive, that they have been extremely pleased with the work that she's done, and that she came highly recommended. We got deep into other, very specific conversations, but the bottom line is that both of the people that I spoke to, the mayor and the city administrator, expressed that if we were to have Lori as our city planner, that we would be very lucky to have landed her. And so those were the interviews that I did for references. And as we were going through our first interview with them, the thing being a very people-oriented person, one of the things that I noticed was the chemistry between their group and this group. And it was remarkable. For the first time that we had ever spoken to each other, we had a really great connection, and we just spoke the same language. It left me with the feeling that this would be a very workable situation. Stantec, there's a familiarity there with them that is absolutely undeniable. I just didn't feel that Stantec went to the same level of figuring out who we are right now. They've known us for a really long time. I think they've been working with us for 17 years, something like that. And you were mentioning that in the second interview, we had a special planning and zoning meeting after the first round of interviews. And that was a recorded meeting because it was an official meeting. And the WSB group, they went in and they watched that. And they answered every one of the questions that we were asking each other at the table that day. Stantec came in and they asked us what we wanted to talk about. And so it was just a big difference in the attention to detail that WSB gave the process.
WSB went out of their way to look back and see what we were talking about.
They absolutely did.
You know, another thing that I kind of like to not, you might have more things to add, but, it was trying to get the community, input that there is and how do you really reach the people that there are? Because so many people, I mean, you have a public hearing, nobody shows up for a lot of the stuff that goes on. And they even came up with the idea of putting a table or a little bit of a booth at Gas and Go and over at Casey's, and they even said to turn around over the weekends to have a booth over at Tilly's to be able to talk to the community to find out exactly what they really want for questionnaires, different things that way that they had come up with, I thought, some pretty good ideas on how to reach the people. You know, because that's what we want to do is have the input of everybody in the community, not just what we're doing here for doing this, so.
They were big on the community engagement part.
Very big on that, and I think
And it
that's
was
so
from
important.
every angle too,
Yeah.
you know, for people that are very online, they have that. For people that are very face to face, they have that. And they had several different approaches that they wanted to take. And I just found that because we're launching into this city growth, and it is going to be exciting, it's going to be challenging, but they are super fresh to the scene. And I just felt that was going to be an asset to,
WSB also brought up the idea of when it comes to rewriting our code and what we want to do, possibly bring in figure out, get a lot of the local people involved in some type of a steering committee to determine what we want for.
yeah, so it wouldn't just be us telling you what it is that we're going to do in your city. You know, it would be you coming in and joining with us in the conversation so that we know that we're actually proposing something that you would be very pleased with. You wanted to say
No,
something?
I'm saying it's the connection. It was all about the connection.
Mhm.
But, you know, and the other thing I will say, everything that we're talking about is, and I want to be very clear, we're not saying that Bill and company are doing a substandard job at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
That is nowhere on the radar.
Yeah.
They've done an excellent job.
But I agree. I think there was more connection there, good connection. That did maybe, not maybe, I would say it's more of a different look,
Mhm.
kind of a different approach to the city and how we do things, how we approach things. Sounded pretty exciting to me. And
Definitely.
they were very creative in their thoughts
Mhm.
and when, what they would do, and I thought it was great.
And then just to also mention too, there was a difference financially too, so economically,
Yeah.
they were.
Yeah.
They were less
Yeah, I believe that
expensive,
the
more
Stantec
economical.
bid was a 50% higher.
Not
than
50, but
WSB.
it was definitely higher percentage wise, yeah.
It was close, it's probably 40.
Mhm.
Mhm. Is there any other discussion?
I'd make a motion that we propose to city council to go with the WSB.
And I'll second that.
So it's been moved and seconded that the Planning and Zoning Commission make the recommendation for WSB to be the city planner that has been chosen by the commission through the RFP process. Is there any discussion, any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor of recommending WSB to be our city planner in response to the RFP, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
I'd like to abstain because this is the first time.
I
I've
understand.
seen
No
it.
problem. No problem. So, motion is passed. We will be making the recommendation to the city council that we contract with WSB in awarding them the RFP bid. And once again, as a reminder, Orinoco Planning and Zoning is an advisory commission, and we will be forwarding the recommendation to city council for their consideration at the November 21st meeting, as the council is the final authority in this decision-making process. So moving on to other business, I'd like to have a discussion. We received a list of permits that are dated from January 10th, 2023. The final permit is October 12th, 2023. And as I was looking through this sheet, I became aware that there are there are 8 permits that were issued that they have total fees listed, but there are no payments that were made on those.
Oh, that was the
This
old.
is what we received last meeting. And I'd be happy to make copies of this and send it to the rest of you. And so I just would like to ask Renee, or maybe as you're sitting at that desk, Ryland, maybe you have the answer to the question. Do you have any idea why 8 of these permits that have been issued and that have a fee next to them, that the fee has not been collected for them?
Yeah, that's what
Okay, and I didn't expect you to. I know you've,
it does her thing and.
I know you've been deep in work in that office. But there was one on here that I found really interesting, and it was permit 230094 issued on August 31st for property at 45 3rd Street Southeast, and it's for a manufactured home. And there's an $1,172.95 fee and 0 payment. But I was just curious because I think that this just went in the last couple of weeks, and it's a single wide manufactured home.
Went in while we were in Iceland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did. And there've been a few phone calls and inquiries about this. Some of the neighbors are not super happy with this. And so I was just curious as to what the conversation was that went on around that.
Talks to CMS multiple times daily, so on a lot of permits, so. CMS there.
That's our
Is that
inspector.
the inspector? Yeah. And so do I just need to refer back to Renee to find out the answers to all these questions? Okay, very good. Well, that is
But-
it.
I guess my question would be, could anything have happened if a fee hasn't been paid? To me, that's not a permit. If it's not been paid, it's not a legitimate permit.
That's
So
an
there shouldn't have
excellent
been
point.
anything to happen, because
Until
we're
it
not
is
allowing
paid.
these businesses coming in to do things unless they cross the Ts, dot the Is.
Right,
Don't you have to pay right then and there when you get your permit? I mean, I did.
I did.
I mean, that's all we could do is just by go with that report was what came up out of that report.
You don't let
Yeah.
Phillies go the 1st of July to pay their liquor license. Why would you do it the other way?
I think that the concern is too, that we don't really, I don't want to see a whole lot of single wide manufactured homes popping up all over in this town, because that's not what we really want to have for this town. I mean, we've got Orinoco Estates that can handle those type properties that there are without bringing them into the city.
Right, cause I think
You know,
there's a
so-
difference. Yes, you can call it a manufactured home, a Wausau home would be a manufactured home. But that, to me, let's be real, it's a trailer home, it's on wheels. It comes in on wheels, or maybe the other ones, they could argue they do as well. But it, you know, it's a single wide 60 or 80-foot mobile home.
Yeah.
And I agree, there's mobile home parks.
Yeah,
Maybe something needs to end up in our code that requires any manufactured housing to be on a basement.
Right.
Cause that
I
is-
think we
that's
need
just
to
on
look
the
at that,
blocks and dies down.
especially given the fact.
If you're familiar with the R1's code now, it just says single family dwelling. Doesn't reference house, mobile home. So
Yeah, well-
there's more encroachings, there's several other double wides in town too, so.
But that's a single wide though, right?
so this is single, is that, I mean, if,
Double, all single family dwellings, so. Until the codes change, that's what you have.
so I think we should probably maybe make a moratorium on that, that we put everything on hold until we get our code book written, that there is. You know, to revise that in our code so that we can address that, so.
Well, and I think that we need to find out whether or not that fee was paid, or whether this is just, if it's an oversight or if it actually has never been paid.
Right.
Okay, I'll make that inquiry with
And if it
Renee.
has, I mean, we need to see timestamps. and
Yes.
Payments, physical timestamps, so we can prove it. So these things can be legal. You know, as payments happen, they need to be timestamped. Date and timestamp.
Well, and just like we're considering the residents that came in tonight to look at the development proposal. And we want to be very sensitive to their concerns. We want to be sensitive to the concerns of the people that are the neighbors around this dwelling as well, because we've heard from them and they're not happy at this point in time. So,
You know, and the other thing, I think too, and we should talk with Renee about it then. You know, is this a concise view? You know, are there people talking with our city engineer? And maybe not showing up on this list, because I think things like that too need to come to planning and zoning. I think planning and zoning should know about things, you know, whether there's even a permit, if someone is talking to City Hall or to our city engineer or to Ryland, I think planning and zoning should know that in terms of transparency, to know what's coming as well and
absolutely.
be prepared.
I guess I would not pass judgment on Renee's work performance unless you really find out the questions.
Yeah, I
We're
don't,
not passing judgment on
This
Renee
is
at
not
all.
about Renee at all, okay?
This has nothing to do with Renee's work performance,
No.
nothing.
Nothing.
not
I
at all.
know, and here again, I mentioned that he's talking to CMS on a daily basis about issues like that. And, you know, the building permits are not picked up until they're paid. We talked about that today on some other issues. So, I don't know where CMS, those reports are coming from, if they're incomplete or what you're looking at, but I would just be cautious about what you're looking at.
Mhm. Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. We need to get more information, but still, you know, if things are being talked about, but even if they don't fall in this. You know,
Well, I
there
like
needs
the
to be
other
transparency.
Yeah, the
Well, and if we're
report
talking
was
about
better.
city growth, the more information we have, the better decisions we're gonna be making regarding the city.
Right.
And
So,
I like the other report that there was, because that one gave the total amounts of what you're
right,
playing
as
around with.
opposed to this
This one
one,
has no
Yeah.
financial data that there is that we can follow up on.
No,
So,
Yeah.
because about half of it was paid and half wasn't paid on the other.
right. So to be clear, this is nothing about Renee. It's not
Absolutely.
saying Renee has done anything
Nothing with
wrong.
Renee.
Mm-mm.
Renee has done nothing wrong here. We just
And this was all done prior.
Just
to
asking
Renee-
her-
Prior,
prior
Just
to
asking
Renee
her
taking
to
over.
enlighten us
right,
as to what's been going on that we were unaware of.
Yep. Yep, absolutely.
Very good.
So I
Yes.
have a question. I mean, because there could be two fees, right? They might have a building permit fee. And then do they need a zoning fee?
Well,
I
we
mean,
don't know.
Why should zoning care if I get a building permit to re-roof my house?
Well, I don't think that it's a re-roof.
Because
I
that's
mean,
what, some of what I saw was a
Yeah, a lot of
re-roofing,
well,
right?
that's some of it that there is, but the
I
other
mean,
part of
most of
it.
it seems
Well,
to
and this
be.
may be helpful also. The reason that we requested this, Colleen, in the first place was because everything that comes in through planning and zoning was getting dumped into one big bucket. That-
Yeah,
and it was about
understand
our-
the,
Yeah, it was
the-
about our accounting software system, and we were just trying to figure out what
And I
we were, we knew
understand
what we were paying out, but we had no idea what was coming in.
And I understand that, but you know, I do think there's a couple kinds of permits here we're talking about. I mean, I don't know what I mean, he's right up the road from me, the Sagal Wide is.
Mhm.
I don't know what kind of permit he got, what kind of permit he needed to have.
Those are the things that we're
Those are the
trying to
questions we
figure
get,
out.
right?
Okay, those are the
I
questions.
get it,
Yeah, the
but
big
yeah.
question is just showing up that it wasn't
Yeah,
paid
and
for.
He
right?
wouldn't have to have a
Well, yeah,
building
I
permit.
just
That's
looked
what
at
we're,
that.
that's
once I
our
got-
main focus is
You need
these
a
permits
zoning
that have not
Well,
been
yeah,
paid.
but you don't want to have single wide mobile
I
homes
get
all
that,
over
but we
town
found
either.
that from finding this list of permits that were never paid for.
That
That's,
must have met the square footage
I
requirement.
mean, we don't have free permits, do we?
Only for
No.
fire.
Well,
But
the
the
thing of it is
question is,
that,
a
is that
building
for the
permit that's
permits
not
that are not paid, they
That's-
have
right.
they have a fee attached. And it just didn't get paid in the
Yeah,
second
yeah.
column. So, and whether that was something that was just a data entry issue or whether it was something that actually never got paid.
Yeah.
We have no
Right. I
idea.
was just making sure that that's what the main focus of this was, right, is we have these permits that had fees that there's 8 of them that have not been paid.
Well, and we wanted to get an idea of what kind of money was coming in.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Because what and getting back to the why is that
And
we
they-
were talking about our fee schedules for applications.
Sure.
And we were going, okay, what kind of applications are we receiving from people? What are the fees that we're charging right now? What is it that actually costs us in the long run as a city that we are putting that burden on taxpayers? And so it wasn't about trying to understand everything about accounting. It was about the fee schedules that we were thinking that we needed to adjust in respect to the applications that we have.
And the other thing is, and it's not just the financial side of it. It's understanding and, okay, the roofing fees, things like that. Yeah, I mean,
So. I mean,
rather
it's-
have all than none. And I think projects, for instance, Glenn's Motor Coach. That didn't come here.
I mean, we didn't find out about it until after it was already under construction.
Right.
And it's like,
And we're planning.
no, we're
we
supposed to
should
be
know
planning
those
and
things.
zoning. We should know what's going on in the city.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
So
It's
that's-
like, we're not. It's
Yeah.
That
like,
would be desirable.
Yeah,
it's
so
like
that's,
half of it goes this way and they just, don't pass it along for
So is
us.
that property still in the township?
Which one?
Glenn's Motor Coach.
No,
It's in the city.
it's
now?
in the city.
yeah, so
So-
that's the idea behind
Let me have yours.
this. It's just transparency,
It's like, yeah, I
understanding
get
what's
this, but I
happening.
look at this and it's like, you
Yeah,
know,
this
got
doesn't-
replace water heater, you
Yeah.
know, re-shingle.
Right. And I think we
What do I-
have this just because we said, hey, can you give us this, just so we can see what permits are out there? You know, what people are,
Yeah.
I think the
you know,
biggest reason,
building.
Hey,
the biggest reason for the request and that stuff was had to do with more
okay.
variances.
For all of us.
Stuff that-
Can we have one conversation at a time here? Or if you're gonna talk quietly, please.
It has more to do with the permits that require our input, like variances and
Yeah.
conditional use.
Right.
permits.
Well, and I think that part of the other reason, now that you've said that, the reason we requested this is because as we're getting ready to rewrite code, we wanted to know how many variance requests we were getting, how many conditional use permits we were getting, because that was gonna be something that was gonna directly impact the way that we were looking at rewriting the city code. So,
And I think, you know, to my point about the conversations that are happening with the city engineer or possibly with the city planners, you know, are there things that are being discussed, like what we heard tonight? Are there things like that are being discussed that we don't know about? I think there needs to be transparency so we understand what's coming.
absolutely.
So something like what the Hamilton tonight, we've got a deadline and it's
2 weeks away.
2 weeks away
Mhm.
and the expectation is, because then it falls on planning and zoning that, hey, you guys need to give up an answer within 2 weeks and look at all the things that it includes that we would have to consider and take care of to say, okay, yep, we're gonna help you. We wanna help
Well,
business come in.
But I think that we should have had more time than just a couple of weeks with this too, because I think that the one tonight has been talked about for a while.
And that's my
And,
fear.
and when
That's my
you're
fear.
going
we're
on a
just hearing about
discussion
it.
to do it, you know, they expect us to turn around and make decisions at the last minute. And, you know, I've seen that with a lot of things that have gone on with council. That it's the last day that there is, and all of a sudden, here it is, make a decision, which isn't right for us, you know?
Yeah, we,
Not a great way to be making a
No.
decision.
in all reality, we're not on a timeline with them because they haven't produced any paperwork for request for anything,
no,
which would start a 60-day timeline. With all due respect to them, absolutely. But if they've had that in the works and been talking about it for quite a while, they probably shouldn't have waited till 2 weeks before they're making a decision to come and present it and say, hey, we got this in mind. Can we work together over the
right.
next
And
You
few
know, I mean,
months?
work with them, we do. But we have to consider what we have going on too. And we have timelines on our stuff, and I realize developers have timelines because they have investors and everything. But a 2 week time period is really hard.
It's pretty tight.
It's pretty tight to do what they're wanting us to do. And if to my point is, if that whole idea or that whole plan of what Hamilton was talking about has been talked about for a month and we didn't know about it,
We're just hearing about it.
we're just hearing about it now, but the onus is on us to make these changes and to help them and to work with them. We've got 2 weeks to say, we're gonna work with you. Will we work with them? Yeah, we will, but what pieces can we work on? If we're better prepared when we have people like Hamilton, the Hamilton group come to us, all the better, so we can be prepared and move fast.
So if you turn around and you look at like Two Sisters,
Yes,
they came and they said, okay, this is what we're planning on doing. This is what we're looking at, you know, before it became formal.
Right.
They brought it up and said, okay, this is kind of where our thought process is. And it's the same thing that there was with the Greens. With the other restaurant that there is in town, is turning around and also talking to us ahead of time, going, this is what we're planning on doing. You know, are you guys with us on what we want to do? And the answer was definitely yes, so.
I think I will say though, that Two Sisters was a much easier ask, right? They were
Absolutely.
just asking for an easement. I mean,
But they
when
were
when
talking about.
Hamilton's looking at buying a big lot, I don't know how long they've been going at it, but probably a month or more, but
Mhm.
they are in a time crunch if you're trying to put down a deposit.
Right,
So
and
it
if
might
you're-
not be
if
totally
you have to
on
give
them.
investors an answer, I mean, I
understand that,
sympathize
that's,
with them.
your emergency isn't our emergency. I
Exactly.
understand
Yeah.
that part,
That's
but
right.
you know, that's a different thing than whether or not other behind the scenes
Right.
discussions were really going on here, or whether it's just, okay, you know, when I put a bid on something, there are deadlines on how fast I have to finalize and say, yeah,
Mhm.
I'm gonna go with it, so.
Yeah.
That was my sense on Hamilton, and And again, their emergency isn't our emergency.
Well, and even if we wanted to, I mean, it kind of seems like what they're looking for by the beginning of December. You know, are we going to, I mean, how do we say, yeah, we're gonna help you and get on board? Well, we can't say that because
can't
right
come
now
in.
that apartment building is not, the way that it is now, is not gonna fly.
Right.
And we can't promise them that we're gonna make that happen because that's not how it works. So even if we wanted to, we cannot by the first tell them,
We can't promise that it would
we
happen.
can say, we like the idea, we're gonna see what we can do. But the risk is still there for you because that,
Right.
we can't pass that, we can't. Yeah.
Well,
Or-
and
or-
if everybody recalls, that apartment building was a deal breaker for them.
Yep.
If that
Yeah.
apartment building does not happen,
Yeah.
the whole project does not happen. And, yeah, that apartment building is
Right,
the big sticking point, the way that I see it.
But I think I think we should take a look at it. And come back and see, okay, what pieces of it can we accommodate, or do we think we can accommodate within a timeline? I think a 2-week timeline is unreasonable.
It's really
It's
good.
very unreasonable. We've turned people down on things based on the future land use plan and what the current zoning is and everything. People have been turned down, but that's where I have a little pause to be changing zoning and doing things outside the future land use plan in a 2-week time period.
Yeah,
I think there needs to be time to put some thought in it. And yes, we are right in the middle of RFP. But I don't want to say we can't do anything, but let's look at, to Paul's point, what can we do with variances and
and
things
that's
like
the thing
that?
that I'm thinking of right now. What if we were to take their plan, put it next to our future land use
Mhm.
plan and identify those pieces that already fit the plan? Let's figure out what percentage of the project already fits what we've got going on. And then let's identify those parts that we would need to make changes, we would need to rezone, we would need to do whatever. And we've got to figure out how critical those pieces are. And if, number one, do we really even want a 70-some unit apartment building in town? And number two, if we decided that we did want it, how much of heaven and earth do we have to move to make that happen? You know,
Right.
and
Because
so
then
maybe
have
if we
to
just kind of like dissected it
Well, we-
according to what we already have existing for zoning.
like what you just said, when we even mentioned the fact that the apartment building might not fly. She was pretty much like, okay, wheels
Yeah,
off.
she goes, we're
So
gonna
I
go
wouldn't
somewhere
put
else.
A whole bunch of time into worrying about things that we can do, if the one thing that we can't do is a deal breaker for. us.
Well, and so maybe that's the first thing that we do is we identify what falls into what would work without any effort. We
Yeah,
figure out what needs to be looked at, and that's the only stuff we're really researching at all,
right.
right?
Because if that's gonna kill the deal, then we don't need to worry about the rest. We just worry about that first. If
Mhm.
there's a way that works out, then you move on. If that doesn't work out and that ends the deal, then
But I don't think we can come up with that determination in a 2-week time period.
I don't think. you
Because
can
I think
either.
part of that is hearing from our residents.
Well, it's a public hearing that needs to take
Yeah.
place, which
Yeah.
is gonna be a big part of that,
That's
you know,
why
and you're not gonna.
Seems impossible, even if we all agreed and wanted to do something. The way that it works, we just don't have the time.
Yeah, I think we all agree that we want to work with them.
Yeah.
But what pieces of it we can work with them on, I think are in question.
Well, and I think that one of the things that I feel like we're being asked right now is to be a rubber stamp. And that's not gonna be beneficial overall for the city. We have accountability to you. And I don't know how we would explain, oh, well, they came and they asked and we know that you don't like this part, but you know, I can't see us doing that because that's not who we are.
Don't want to be explaining stuff we shouldn't have to explain.
So-
Yeah,
So I'll bring us back because I think I took us down this path using them
Can we
as
go
an
down a little
example.
rabbit hole?
Yeah, so I guess the point is, and I think this really explains the validity of the point is if there are conversations that are happening with our city engineer, our city planner, our mayor, council members, that needs to start right here, I think. Or I don't want to say start right here.
We
It
at
needs to be
We
communicated.
at least
and
need to be involved in
transparent.
the conversation.
'cause
If
we
we're
can-
gonna be asked to make a decision,
Right,
that we have to know because we can't make good decisions on the fly.
Right.
It just doesn't work. We might get lucky occasionally and make a good decision on the fly, but to do it time after time is
Yeah.
bad practice.
As a rule, it doesn't work.
No, we want to do the best practice thing in here, so. Any further discussion on the topic?
Make a motion.
for this, I would rather see that. than
Well, no,
this.
we'd already talked about.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, so then I make a motion, we adjourn.
I second.
Oh, but
Should we, maybe make it, should we talk very concretely and say, we are unable to make a decision to commit to this
Yeah.
project within.
In a
2 weeks?
2 week period.
that's right, because we don't have another meeting.
Or
Well,
we can
yeah,
say
otherwise
that
we have to
we're-
find a way to
Yeah,
have
we have to get
another.
back to.
But we're
meeting.
interested in the
Yeah.
project, but
Be very interested, but yeah, we'd
we
have to
need, we
have
need that,
public involved
and
all
maybe
that.
that they can push off. You know, their part behind it, buy some more time, if they know that we're interested in the project.
So what kind of a time frame do we think would be reasonable then? Because to just say to them, we need more time. It's
Well,
like them
I-
saying we have a deadline,
Give
you
us-
know?
I get that, but yeah, I mean, the answer right now is we can't give you an answer in 2 weeks. I don't know how fast, because again, I think what Paul said is that some of this could be under variance.
Well,
But then each of those becomes a hearing. They have to bring their proposal, you know, they have to pay the variance fee and.
And I think the first question would be, is the apartment building a deal breaker for the entire development?
Right.
Ask.
It
And if
sounded
it
like
is,
from
But
her
I
that it
think we
was.
need to get that as a concrete answer.
Yeah.
We need a concrete answer on, is that the deal breaker?
Well, is it,
A deal.
and then is it a deal breaker for us?
Mhm.
Well,
I mean, if we say it's a deal breaker for us, then they can make the decision whether it's a deal breaker for them. So is the apartment building a deal breaker?
The only, and I can see, I'm gonna go both ways. I mean, I can see their point on what they're trying to do.
I know.
I think it's how it's gonna look, the aesthetics behind it, okay? If it's something that blended in, that was appealing. You know, that wasn't an eyesore, that here's this concrete apartment building that's sitting there. Then maybe it might be something to look at, but again, we don't have a visual. I was
Look at.
and that's why I wanted to go see some of the stuff that they really had, because if you had. You know, certain design requirements that there are on what you have. And there was one that looked, you know, halfway appealing.
Well, and I'll go back to the two sisters, not to interrupt, Jim. When they came, they said, this is what we're proposing it to look like. It was a rendition, not
Yeah.
the final, but it gave us something to look at, to know, okay, this is what their plans are.
Something like this.
So you guys.
Oh, yeah,
can
I'm-
see what it is
Then
that we're
it's like, it would fit, where it's not just an eyesore that's sitting there that comes in.
Perfect.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yes, I mean, they had, I'm just saying that even if,
To look at the future land. use
well,
plan.
and
Yeah.
even if
The
we
same
don't
advice I told
thought
them.
that it's a good idea,
It's still gonna go through a public hearing. anyway.
so when's the soonest that we can have a public
They need
hearing?
to look at the future land.
Well,
use plan.
I don't know, we could probably, I would
Two
think,
things.
especially with what you have going on
Yeah.
with the holidays coming up, and have to say it's gonna be January before you
Yeah,
know
so that-
realistically. do
Right, so
something.
we couldn't,
Yeah.
So then you have a public hearing, then let's say that,
73 is make or
Yeah,
break.
hang on one second,
That
guys.
might be up for negotiation. They might be fine with a 30 unit. It's might not have to be a 73 unit. And that might fit in better or be more accessible for the.
It might be
I don't
more,
know.
more digestible, but I think that for the future land use purpose, it's probably not going to work because it's a 30 unit still, correct?
I get it.
Yeah,
Everything is open to public hearing and change.
absolutely.
But those plans are put into play because then people forecast and know what's gonna be developed in there and they buy property by it.
Yeah, they buy it based on
And
what
the
they think.
transition, they're doing a beautiful job. I give them an A
They
for
are.
effort because they are trying to buffer like they're supposed to. That's in our code.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's required to go R1, R2, B1, because that's what they have against you. So you have to have that. I do worry about the home here that's on the corner.
Ross Parker's. place.
Ross is home, I don't want to call him out, but I do worry because he would be backing right up to that 73 unit place, and if I was him, there's no buffer there.
Yeah,
And I would argue from a zoning P and Z standpoint, if I was on committee, that that is not appropriate buffer. You have, because you're going from an R1 basically to a extremely high density.
Mhm.
Right.
And so, but on the other side, I give them credit because they're putting the woods and the drain pond between the R1s.
I get that.
And so like I said, there's a lot of effort into it. I would encourage them to continue that. Like, if they actually want to be successful, continue to overlay it, I think, Wendy, like you said, with the R1 or 2 plan and say, look, all of this basically fits within plan. You might have to use some conditional use permit. You have the 4 units.
Mhm.
We actually do allow 4, 5, 6, 7, higher unit dwellings in our code, but they're conditional use, which means a special public hearing and conditional use permit for that property. So there are ways.
Did we,
to get higher
did we,
density
did we adopt
within
that?
the code
in
without
use
having
permit?
for them to wait for this whole RFP and the code process.
Right.
So I think there are ways that the city and Hamilton can work together
Yep.
as well as the resident. And again, that's a key piece to this. And I know they did reach out to the homeowners association, so you guys are aware. They did contact us.
That's
And that's
good.
why we're here. They wanted to meet with us ahead of time, but they first wanted to see what you guys were gonna say before they met with us.
Mhm.
And that's why my advice to them was look at the future land use plan, meet with the homeowners associations. You'll get an idea of what that land was planned for in the code and what everybody's assuming it's going to be and what the homeowners want, AKA the city residents want. Those two things that you marry, a happy median. And again, at 73 unit, that's why I kind of hinted that was kind of not way out of scope.
Of the
That-
plan. Mhm.
That's what's gonna kill it, but if they need a super high density to make a profit, and rentals, those are all things that when we did our thing, that we're like, the city wasn't really keen on. As part of being, to Wendy's point, there's a lot of places on 65th Avenue you can go, so you can get a 100 unit building and you get out what you want, it's right down the street. If you wanna come to Orinoco, it is more of that small town community. The larger lots, yes, do we need to have affordable homes? Yes, and that's in our future land use plan. There are areas where we actually have high density units, including senior living, which has already come to P and Z previously, multiple companies interested in that. Cause that's another big area. But I do think there's a possibility to work together, but they have to do those things. And that's what I would encourage to this point. That's the message I'd give back to them if I was you. Is that there's a lot of positive here. You can't guarantee anything because that's the nature of P and Z and public hearings. And you are a recommending body and ultimately city council make a decision. But I would continue your work with the future land use plan with the homeowners associations, come up with a plan that everybody would agree to. There are ways in our current code now that they could get 90% of that in play.
Yep.
Right now,
Mhm.
without any code changes. Just CUP, the conditions on the way.
So we have an interim use permit or interim use now that can be used.
So I think there's ways forward for everybody. It's just I would encourage those dialogues and discussions and on their side, I would probably go to the owner and say, before I commit to this, I want an extension, right, for the right to purchase or whatever.
Mhm.
And I think that's, where they want to come, to do that,
I
so.
think that would make the most sense. I do see ways forward for this. It's just a matter of addressing all the needs and doing things.
Well, the deal breaker one way or the other, if it's the apartment house, it's, is what it is.
That's what I think we need to find out. And then if it is, then it makes no sense to do the other piece of it. But I agree with Paul, and we just talked about it. Let's give them an idea. If that's not a deal breaker, what can they do and get started right away within the guise of our future land use plan and current code? Because we are rewriting code.
Which is just being rewritten, with lot sizes, are gonna be
Yeah, lot
addressed.
sizes will
And
change.
that was gonna be at the first part of what was going
Right,
on,
that was
because
the
they've
first
only
part.
put that
Yeah.
at the top, so that's.
And
pretty good look at.
and all in all, if we really wanna consider whether or not we want these apartment houses like that, maybe instead of lot sizes, maybe we address X number of square feet per residential unit, call it a resident. You got 15 apartments, you have to have 6,500 feet per apartment. That's how you're gonna stop that if you don't want that coming. Addressing per square foot per residential unit instead of square foot per lot size. That would end all of it. You know,
Well,
pick a number and.
But for the purpose of this conversation, and a 2-week timeline that we're working under, Paul, I appreciate your input. It's very helpful to just
Absolutely.
go back to future land use plan, because
And bring it.
that is the thing that the people in the city agreed on, right? That that this looked good to them. And we want happy residents, most definitely. Okay,
So our recommendation is going to be to them, they need to look at the future land use plan.
And overlay it and,
and that we can't give them any kind of
can't give us,
answer.
but we
by
would
December
like to be
1st.
workable, with the exception
And also
of.
direct them to 151040, the code that actually shows the table. So the 151.040, that actually shows them in R1 and R2, they can have the 3 to 4 units permitted. The 5 to, I think, 11 units is conditional. So that table right there tells them what they can do today in that R1, R2 zoned property that they're looking at.
Okay, thank you so much, Paul.
Magic.
Years of experience in the audience is a very
And the other
helpful
I was
thing.
looking at For that home that went through, we had put in that homes had to have a solid foundation, because that came up during the tiny home
Yep.
discussion. And we had put into the code, and I thought it was under the OACC area, but that's just the B1 stuff. So somewhere buried in our code, there is something that says the house is supposed to have a foundation. It can't be sitting on wheels unless it's in the tiny home community, which is a planned unit development regulation of our code, which is totally separate. But here, so something wasn't right, and that should have been caught when the plans came in to be inspected by the city and the permits, that should have been caught.
So something with that
So something.
didn't happen the way it was supposed to.
Yeah, something with the
Something got
climate,
missed.
yeah.
Well,
Maybe it
could
is.
also
still
be the
loophole.
person just did it. I mean.
Well, and that's what we need to find out.
So we're looking at all this stuff, okay?
Say that again,
I
please.
said, and our codes are still weak,
Yes.
our wording, which is why this RFP is very important.
Mhm.
To beef up the codes and add those details and the pictures or other things that show, here's the architectural minimum standards that we expect in a home or whatever.
Mhm.
So if you want to keep things a certain quality or certain thing, that's all goes into your code. And our codes right now do not have all that.
Right.
And so that's where that RFP will go talk about all those details. Right now, it's just specifically lot sizes, and that was because we cared about septic back then. The original codes, and we had to have space to place
Right.
that on your property. But now that's gone, or will be gone in March. We go live with the water treatment plan. Based on our sewer meeting last night. But yeah.
Colleen, did you get everything that you needed out of that?
Enough.
You can add that for the rest of it.
So,
Basically, we're just gonna say, nope.
Well, we're gonna say that we wanna continue to work with them, but.
Right.
But
Can't
that
do it.
we can't give them anything
we can't do it
definite.
in that timeline. We
But
want
to
them
be
look
able
at
to
the
pull
future
what
land
there
use
is.
plan.
And put it
And we
together.
want to continue the conversation if they're willing to do so. So, with all that being said, I know we had this one time. You want to do it again, Jim?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second it.
It has been moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Meeting is adjourned at 8:33 PM.
Before you're leaving, I want to show you this.
Thank you all.
Back the fun memories.
Yeah, good to see you, Paul.
Thank you.